Hello, welcome to VR Roundtable, episode 90. My name is Gary, and joining me is Steve and Anthony this week. Chris is unfortunately unable to join us, but he'll be back at some point anyway, hopefully next week. We'll see. So we've got a few news stories to talk about this week. Not too much, actually. It's post E3, so it's just sort of a few smaller news stories, although quite a significant one, I would say, from Valve. And then we've got a few games to talk about as well. So thanks for joining us this week, and hope you enjoy the show. Steve, how are you this week?
I'm very good. Nothing to complain about, which is probably not how you want to start off speaking, but that's it. Like, everything's going well. I don't have no highs, no lows. Everything's just chill.
Excellent. Anthony, what's it like over in Sacramento today? I tell you, because you can see the sun out there. It's crazy over here. We've got a really hot week coming our way over here in the UK. How is it over there?
Yeah, the weather update is well, yesterday it was 105, and today I didn't look, but I'm sure it's supposed to be like 102 or something. And it's weird because sometimes I'll go outside and like it's not that hot, and then I'll be moving around a little bit more, and then I'm like, holy shit, it is ridiculously hot. So it's like kind of weird from that standpoint, but it does cut into my VR a little bit because I really have to get my fans. I have two different fans, and as long as I'm like blasting my head area with air, I'm pretty good. But and another thing I've noticed too, though, is like if I went to a front speaker setup, which I was doing that for a little while with Beat Saber, I actually removed my Oculus Rift headphones. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but you can screw them off like with a little screwdriver, and they pop off, and one of them has right and left on it, and then they just pop back on. You screw them back in. It's not that big of a deal. But one thing I noticed is when you take off those headphones, I feel like that takes a lot of the heat away for some reason. It's like covering the ears, even if you have earbuds, I think there's still kind of like something's in your ear, and I think it generates a little bit of heat. And when you have nothing in your ears like that, it's a lot cooler. But the downside is there's a lot of VR experiences that you're missing out if you don't have that 360 audio. Some of them where they're very front facing, it works fine, like Beat Saber.
Do you still have your 5.1 or 7.1 speakers and everything? If you just throw those around your room, it'll still respond in a 360 fashion. Like you can get some of that the same way you're getting the front facing. I did that way back in the day when I had stuff down in my theater, because I still have all my surround and everything set up, and it will do that. It's still not as nice as headphones, of course, but if you're finding that that's more comfortable for you to ditch the headphones and play with external audio, give that a go. Just throw them up, just in a sort of quick and jank kind of way, and check it out.
I did that way back in the days, back when I first got my Vive, but I came to the realization that it doesn't really work like that. Like, you'll get noise out of your back speakers, but I think the only way like external speakers would really work with VR in the real way that we would want them to work is if like Dolby Atmos, if like they had Dolby Atmos support in all these games, and if you had literally like 30 speakers surrounding you, and every speaker was an equal distance apart from each other, all at the same height, surrounding you, then I think, because then you would turn your head, and like the Dolby Atmos would understand, oh, your head is turning, so I'm turning the entire sound field with your head. But way back in 2016, when I first got my Vive, I was trying to do that, hoping that and to me, although I would get some sound out of the rear speakers in certain respects, it wasn't anything like headphones.
I never did it with my Vive or my Rift because I never had my PC down there. So I only did it with the PlayStation VR. And I think it was with Batman. It may be just the games and everything I was paying attention to at the time, but they did know, like when I spun, 90 degrees to the left, what was the left audio started coming out of my center speaker. And likewise, like it was doing some sound field mapping. But again, that was just
I think
PlayStation.
That's placebo effect.
No, it did. It may have been something, Sony, because, they have a tight control around their sound profiles and and they're simulated because they can completely with the PlayStation itself. When you're connected to a surround receiver, they can control the channel. So there may be something on board in the PlayStation that was doing it. But I do know for sure it worked. But yeah, I don't know. PC may not do it.
We probably have some audio files that might listen to this episode. Go ahead and post in the comments what you guys think. I'm curious. If PSVR can do that, that would really. I'd be interested in the one thing about external speakers though is like subwoofers and stuff. Like I always heard like crank your subwoofer way the hell up and then you could feel, that could add some extra juice to it. But whenever I would have my headphones on and stuff, I just wouldn't really notice the subwoofer as no matter how high I turn the damn thing up.
Yeah. There's I just speaking of like the heat at the moment as well, just going back to your original point, Anthony, like taking your original point of taking these headphones off is to sort of reduce the heat of the headset and this kind of stuff. I went to a retro event yesterday and I spent a lot more time on some of these older retro machines, these retro VR machines. So I played Dactyl Nightmare and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, when I came out of Dactyl Nightmare, the sweat was dripping off me. I mean, I tried to clean it off as best as I could, but it's not a nice experience, I wouldn't think. But yeah, it's really hot, and those older headsets were really do get hot actually. And talking of the audio on those as well, they actually do a pretty good job of audio. Everything's integrated, but the headset is absolutely huge. It's not particularly comfortable or anything like that. But yeah, the audio, they do a pretty good job on it. Actually, probably they do a better job on the audio than they do on the screens, in all honesty. But that's the technology they were dealing with back then. But yeah, I think audio is important. But I've always used the built-in Rift audio or the earbuds on the Vive and this kind of stuff. I've never ever used sort of external audio, although I'm sure that would be the sort of the best way you could do it if you had a perfect setup some way. Okay, let's get on to the news then. So the first one and the main one, I suppose, this week is the new Valvle Knuckles prototype. So these were sort of announced, I guess, last week, but they're shipping to developers. So the big thing about these new Knuckles controllers is the fact that they now have thumbsticks included, which is something that I know that various members of this show wanted. We wanted thumbsticks because we like the touch controllers with thumbsticks, but they are also including a touch sensor as well onto these. So it's sort of like an amalgamation of, I guess, the Windows mixed reality, but maybe Valve are doing a slightly better job on that front. But yeah, they look a little bit more comfortable. And alongside this, they released a few videos just showing off some of the use cases for these controllers when they come out. And like I say, they're being shipped to developers at the moment. But there was one of these videos where you can squeeze an object that's in your hand, and it behaves almost like a stress reliever kind of thing that we know about. So you squeeze it and it expands, and then you let go and it retracts. So there's a few of these videos around. So they're doing various things to demonstrate these controllers, and then they've also got this other demo this tech demo, which is called Moondust, which will be available to the developers who are receiving these new Knuckles controllers as well. It's a tech demo which sort of shows the various kinds of use cases for all of these controllers. But they look very good. I've got to say, these impressed me far more, and I was very impressed by the original Knuckles controllers, as I know you were, Anthony. But these ones, now they include the thumbstick. To me, they've sort of taken it up to that next level, because I still think at the moment thumbsticks are important. VR games work so well with thumbsticks in some cases, and I'm glad Valve have moved over to this method of using sort of moving away from the trackpad slightly, not entirely, but I do like that aspect of it. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thumbstick is the biggest thing, and I was really worried that, there's a lot of companies, right? They'll get very stubborn in their decision-making process, and it's almost, some companies will be like, no, we know what's better for you, whether you think it's better for you or not, and they'll really like dig their heels in. And I kind of thought that could be the situation with the thumbsticks, even though basically everybody out there was saying, please, for the love of God, add thumbsticks, and it's not an Oculus versus Vive thing. anybody, if you're playing any game that has like go anywhere locomotion, it's just better with a thumbstick, period. End of story. There's no discussion there. It's simply better because it's just easier to do. And I'm not saying that there aren't any games that use the Vive touchpad that work pretty well that way, but those are the exception. It's not the rule. And so the fact that they actually caved in on that is huge. The other thing I'll say is that I remember when the first Knuckles went out and all the developers got the first Knuckles, and you were seeing like pictures of these cardboard boxes, where the developers were getting these new Knuckles and they were trying them out. And I remember looking at those pictures thinking, these look pretty consumer ready. Like these look like they could be coming out. And it's amazing because if you've seen the picture of the newest Knuckles side by side with their first one, it's like a night and day difference. These really look consumer ready. Like just, you can look at the plastic, like the grooves in it and stuff. It looks like something that has been, it looks like it's basically a final consumer version, really. I mean, that's how polished it looks. And seeing that gives me hope that we don't have to wait until 2020 to finally get these things. I mean, I'm almost like, so many times I would see threads on Reddit or different places about Knuckles, and it's almost one of those, oh, great, Knuckles again. Like wake me up when these things are actually coming. And when all this news originally hit, I was almost in that same kind of mind frame. But then I started looking at some of the stuff, and I'm like, oh, what? Well, this really is something new and worth paying attention to. But I still can't help but think about, well, when are we going to get our damn hands on these things, But the Moondust, I'll talk about Moondust a little bit later. Let's kick it over to Steve.
So, yeah, you guys have pretty much covered it and said what needs to be said. I think, with what you were talking about there, Anthony, just kind of focusing on when we're going to get these things, like, when we last saw the Knuckles, like way back, we saw the very first early prototypes where they didn't have caps over the sensors, and we saw the touchpad. And then it was sometime, I don't know, feels like 6, 7, 8 months later, then we saw that last sort of prototype, and it looked mostly finished. And like it at the time, we're like, oh, that looks almost done. We should be getting these soon. And then looking at that prototype with what we're seeing here this week, and there's a pretty big difference. Like now I'm going to repeat that process again. Like these controllers look done. We should be getting them soon. It feels like we would be getting them soon. The developers, they have been working with the various versions of Knuckles for a while now. So we shouldn't be starting the development cycle from day one with these latest version of the Knuckles. So I would postulate, and it could be 100% wrong because, Valve time, that's a meme. But it seems, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't start getting these here consumer in a reasonable time frame. I would say certainly here in 2018, I would think we would get these. I'm not going to say we're going to get them this summer, but I would be very surprised if we didn't have them sometimes some around fall time frame or something. Again, I could be completely wrong, and it's the way things work, but I don't know how much more refinements they need to do on it. It looks damn good. Get it out there.
I'm actually probably a little bit more skeptical than you, Steve. I think probably early next year for me. I think that's the closest that we're going to get them. Some people sort of speculating whether these controllers are going out to developers to get feedback, or whether these are sort of the final design of the controllers and these are being sent out to developers to literally develop games. So we don't know exactly what's going on with these controllers. One thing I wanted to ask both of you about this, though, there's this issue of, we've had the Vive for a couple of years now, and we've got the traditional Vive controllers, and we've got the Oculus Touch controllers, which work with pretty much every Steam game as well. But I just wonder, because a lot of games that were originally designed for the Vive controllers, they were built around the touchpad, they were built around the aesthetics and everything that controller represented. By changing this at this point, do you think there's anything that developers need to do in terms of adapting their games, and will this change the trajectory of games that are released in the future that will be focused on this design of controller rather than the older design, and will that design be left behind and eventually, you know, be left in the dust? What do you think, Anthony?
Man, that's a hard one. You know, I think it's gonna be a transitional period, and I think I mean that the Valve is going to come up with some kind of way to translate that old wand to this new style. They probably have a built-in mode to kind of translate most of the. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect translation, and I think a lot of games, you know, the devs might want to get back in and patch it a little bit. But yeah, that's going to be problematic. I guess the bright side is that, you know, we don't necessarily have 10 million people playing VR right now. So it's not, you know, you don't have to redo things for 10 million people. So I guess that's maybe the good side of it, you know?
Yeah. I think, you know, we talked about it, and when you think of Oculus and how they don't support other headsets on their ecosystem, we've always said, well, you know, VR is just a monitor. Like, you know, my computer doesn't care if I have a Samsung monitor or an Acer monitor. I'm able to play games on it the same. I think while I agree with that mentality, I think at the same time VR is also sort of like a platform, and one of the reasons is because of the controllers. Like the control methods in these handheld motion controllers are all different. The Vive Wand and the Oculus Touch and the PlayStation Move and whatever the hell Pimax is going to have, and the Windows controllers, they're all, you know, they all have buttons or whatever. They all have triggers, but there's a lot of differences between them. So in terms of how Valve with the OpenVR software and how they translate it, like they're already doing it, right? Like I can play Steam stuff with my Rift and with my Windows MR if I had one, and also with my Vive if I still had it. So there is some kind of basic built-in compatibility. The triggers are the triggers. But we have seen some developers, Bethesda in particular, but also Rockstar with the drawing a blank, LA Noire, like the controls for the Oculus Rift didn't work right out of the gate, and the community had to patch it in, and then eventually Bethesda and Rockstar circled back and kind of got it working. So I think on some situations where the developers are big and they really write their own engines and things like that, it may be a problem. But in the case of the smaller developers, the indie developers that are using the Unreal toolset or the Unity toolset, I think some of that stuff is going to be inherently baked in, and they won't have major translation problems. So I agree with Anthony. I think the timing is, like, if you're going to experiment and find out what the community wants, now's the time to do it, as opposed to waiting till there are 10 million people. Because then it's a much bigger problem.
Yeah. So just getting onto this Moondust, because I've only seen the trailer for this Moondust little tech demo that they're releasing alongside this to developers, so that they can see sort of the use cases for these controllers in sort of a game setting, that kind of stuff. Anthony, what did you want to say about this Moondust?
Well, what I wanted to say about, it's not so much about Moondust specifically, but if you go back to last week, we were in a little bit of a Debbie Downer situation, you know, just coming off of E3. There wasn't a lot of VR at E3, and and we were talking, you know, about the trough of disillusionment and all that sort of thing. And when I saw this Moondust thing, I was like, oh yeah, doesn't Valve have these 3 secret VR games? I don't know why it completely slipped my mind. Valve still has these 3 VR games, right? And obviously Valve time, we understand that, but eventually there has to be a point in time when one of these games will actually see the light of day. And the interesting thing about Moondust, now correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, I watched some of the trailers on it and stuff, but it's kind of in the Portal universe, right?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so my theory is this. Now, any article that you read about Moondust, they'll say, you know, this is not a game, you know, Valve whipped this up because, you know, it's just part of a demo, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to say that if I could go to Vegas right now, and if I could get like 20 to 1 odds, 30 to 1 odds or better, I would put $1,000 down. That, and I'm not even kidding. I'm not even joking. I would put $1,000 down that one of those 3 games is Portal VR in some kind of a way. And the reason I say this is go back to the lab and go back to robot repair in the lab and then look at this Moondust. Now, I personally do not believe that this company is going to create all these assets and do all this stuff simply for a demo. I don't believe that. Now, what I do believe is that they're working on a full game, and they might take a tiny little section out of that full game and work on it a little bit more and say, well, we can release this and say this is just a little demo, and no one has to know that this is part of this huge Portal VR game that we've been working 5 years on. But I mean, I'm telling you, I'd bet dollars to donuts there will be a Portal VR game, and Moondust is just. I mean, I was already thinking that before I saw Moondust, but now seeing Moondust, it's like a lock for me. Am I crazy?
Well, what I tell you what, I think if they are going to do any of their older games, I think Portal is the one that they will do. I think it's the easiest one for them to do because it's self-contained. It's a puzzle game with various sections, exactly the same as we've already played with Portal VR, the VR, the game that was developed by somebody else, but it was a series of rooms, a series of puzzles. And I honestly think a Portal game is the easiest one for them to make. Far easier, obviously, than a Half-Life 3 or anything like that. That would take far more effort for them to do. So I think Portal is the most likely. I don't know if I'm quite as... I don't know. It's possible, Anthony. Like you say, they've created all of these assets. So why would they let these go to waste when they could assign a team? But at the same time, they don't seem bothered in some ways to make games or at least get games out there. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at Valve, they're making money on Steam. Like they don't really have the strong incentive to make software. I think if they wanted to capture the VR market, like they have the hearts and minds of their tracking solution. Everybody loves it. It's the best tracking solution. It's much easier to put 2 lighthouses up on the wall than it is 3 Rift sensors. But I think if they wanted to go after it, they could just do Half-Life 3 exclusively in VR or something crazy like that, and then the headsets are going to sell. It's going to take a game, something major from them, and they could do it. They could capture the VR audience that way, and then they reap all the sales. Like they steal a lot of thunder from Oculus. So why aren't they doing that? I don't know, because I think at the end of the day, if they focus on what's making them money now and just sprinkle enough on VR to kind of keep it moving and percolating, then that's all they need to do. It's hard to say. You have to really be on the inside of Valve and be inside Gabe's head to truly know the answer to these questions. But at the end, any money they'll make on any one game has to be very insignificant to the 30% rake that they're taking on everything sold in the Steam store.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you there. I think that is the approach. That's the way it feels. That's the way it seems to come across. Like they're gaining all this money from Steam anyway, and then they're, like you say, Steve, just sprinkling enough on VR to keep it rolling along, keep it rumbling along in the background. And then if it's suddenly, if something happens with it, then they're there. They're one of the first ones to do it. And that's the way it feels. I hope that's not the case. I hope they are sort of really, really enthusiastic behind the scenes and making these 3 VR games that we've heard about a while ago. Okay. Well, let's go on to the next news story. And this is one I don't know too much about, unfortunately. So Oculus Home, they had an update where now you're able to have these virtual screens within Oculus Home. So they've released some of these objects where, like old retro monitors and this kind of stuff, arcade cabinets where you can have screens showing videos from your desktop if you choose to do so. So they've done that, and they've also done this custom object importing as well. So you can create objects separately and then import them into your home. So yeah, I've not really experimented with it, and honestly, honestly, it doesn't really interest me a great deal, this particular one. Steve, what do you think?
Well, the big key difference is, so previously, or still, I shouldn't say previously, but with Dash in general, you could bring a desktop window in, and it was persistent to your location, your physical location in your room. So if this Dash window was 2 feet to your left, that's where it would be. And then if you teleported, or if you locomoted with the thumbstick in the game world, that dash window would still be in the same position relative to you. Now what you can do is you can make it persistent to the world. So you take a dash window and you stick it on a virtual monitor, or you stick it on a virtual arcade cabinet, and then you move around in the virtual space, but that window stays where it is. So that's sort of the key difference. And I'm with you. I haven't really tried it. Don't really care. Like, there seems to be a lot of emphasis put on home, more so by Oculus, but Steam has their home as well. And these are the landing pads when you put VR on. For some people, I launch my game before I put my headset on. But I guess some people put their headset on first. And then this is sort of the launch pad. This is where you are. And you have these rooms, and you can make them however you want them to be. But I don't get it. Like, am I missing? Do you guys spend time in your Oculus Home or your Steam Home? I don't. I'm just playing games. So I don't know who this is for. It almost like it's the when you think.
I bet you Chris would like it, and he would want his other buddies to be able to be in his little room with him. There's some people that are into this. The same people that would be into this are probably into like Facebook Spaces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, Steve. I don't really get into this. And in fact, when I turn on my Oculus, I just see the menu, the old, I forgot. I'm not in the beta. I like opted out of the beta. For some reason, I was having some problem or whatever. So I don't even see the new home.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just on that point, sorry, go ahead, Steve, because I've got just a little tangent on that.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think what they're trying to do, and what I think of the most is I think of Ready Player One, the book, when they're in H's basement, and that's sort of like the collective hangout before they go out and do something. So, like, if I was going to play something with you guys, I'd be like, hey, meet up in my home, and you guys are in my home where I placed my stuff, and then we decide to go out and play Echo Combat or something. I get that, but it doesn't seem like that's there yet. Like they're missing the whole online social aspect to a degree, that makes this work more fluid. Like, there's something still missing from it. I see where they're trying to go, and I guess that's cool, but I don't know. Like, I just I have a hard time caring.
I think at the moment it's difficult because it is very limited, and like you say, I think that is where they're going to go. They want people to interact with each other within each other's homes, but also I think the long-term goal is to make this into like almost like, rather than Oculus Home, Oculus World. This will be a place where you can all go into. You've all got your separate worlds, and it's a persistent world where you can each go to each other's houses just by traveling there. You know what I mean? I think that would be a great way for them to progress with this. At the minute, it's really just a shell of what I think they want it to be, and that's why I'm really honestly not that interested in it. The tangent I wanted to make just very quickly is, I don't know if you guys have well, Anthony, this won't apply to you if you're not using Oculus Home, but there's been some kind of performance here. I don't know, Steve, if you noticed this when you bring up Dash in Oculus Home. For some reason, since the last update, there's been like some pretty major performance hits for me. Once I'm in a game, it's fine. There's no problems there at all. It's only in the home section and when I bring up Dash.
Well, I have to bring up Dash often to be able to answer you. I don't. Like, I use it to get to the settings, to turn something down, or quickly check something. I don't really use Dash. I haven't been bringing Windows into my gaming world. Even with Elite Dangerous, which I haven't played too much of, but I remember the idea. One of the things you cared a lot about OVR drop was, hey, when I'm traveling sort of painstakingly in Elite Dangerous, sometimes I can have a YouTube window up or something. I haven't felt the need to do that yet. Like, I think it's a great, and I'm not recording, back when we were recording a lot of Let's Plays and stuff here for the channel, like having OBS in, like, that was a real big use, and it was real good benefit. But then, I haven't been doing that, so I just haven't been using it, honestly.
No, No, well, it's just something I noticed. It's not really like a major concern. It's just something I noticed from the last update. That's all. But I think people have mentioned this, but not everybody seems to be affected by it for some reason. But yeah, either way, hopefully they'll get that sorted pretty soon. Okay, well, let's get on to the last little news story we've got down here before we move on to some games that we've been playing this week. And this is to do with Leap Motion. So they've now released sort of a very new video. It's very short, there's not a lot of substance in there, but it's Project Northstar. So what they're doing with this is their AR little project that they've got going on. And in this video, it shows somebody playing table tennis against somebody else in Project Northstar. So it's a real table. Is it a real table actually in front of you from this video? I'm just trying to remember, but either way, basically you've got the tracking system is tracking what they're doing to ridiculous levels. It seems incredible.
I'm looking at it now and it looks like a real table to me. It looks like they've set up a real ping pong table, but then they have virtual paddles and virtual ping pong ball playing on the real table. That's my guess, but like I've been fooled before. Like we were talking about the Anne Frank house last week, where initially I thought it was photogrammetry and it was a rendering. So I could be wrong, but looking at it, it looks like a real table to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, and they're tracking this. Now the trick is they're not actually tracking it using entirely Leap Motion tracking hardware and software just within the headset. So what they've done in order to do this video, because it's very impressive, I've got to say, they are playing table tennis on this presumably real table, but using sort of augmented reality paddles and a ball. And he just throws the ball up and then hits it, and then the other person can hit it back, and it just seems to work so well. Now the trick is that they're using OptiTrack tracking system, which is quite an expensive tracking system. And I don't know if anybody remembers like the old photos from probably over a year ago where Facebook and Oculus were sort of experimenting with OptiTrack in order to get sort of better tracking, just to demonstrate certain things. Well, they're using this in this video, and it's just flawless. I mean, the tracking is flawless and it looks great. Whether they can sort of transition this to be entirely self-contained within the headset or not, I don't know, but it's impressive nonetheless. And I guess that the point of this video is more to do with the fact that the visual fidelity and everything like that is really what they're showing off, rather than the tracking system in this particular video. But it's impressive nonetheless. So Anthony, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it looked cool, but like a lot of people seem to be like really blown away. I saw a lot of tweets and stuff where people were like, "Wow, this is so amazing." I don't know. I don't think it's all that amazing. First of all, I mean, as far as Project Northstar is concerned, it's not a thing. It's not a thing until some other company decides to make it a thing. Leap Motion's said they're not going to do it. That like they're putting this. The whole Project Northstar thing is designed to help them maybe sell their product, because if somebody does take that on, then they will sell a ton of little Leap Motion sensors because it's part of it. But until a company takes this on, it's like all these videos are cool, but that's all they are, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't see anything groundbreaking here.
I think it's pretty cool, and I agree. This isn't a product that is we're going to see anytime soon, if ever. But a lot of the stuff that we see in tech, and it doesn't just apply to VR and AR. Like, you got to get the core underlying tech there, and someone always has rights to it, and someone else always wants to buy it and use it in their products. And that's why you have giant companies like Apple that just buy up stuff. Like, they don't always make everything themselves. So I think this is tech that we could see, whether it's in a Leap Motion product, or if Magic Leap buys some of the tech and it gets integrated into their stuff. Who knows? And doesn't matter. For clarity, so I continued watching the trailer here as we were recording it, and it is indeed a real table. Through the cut of the lenses, the camera they're using, you can see through the nose piece. So when he turns, you're actually able to see the table from just directly. And so yeah, it's a real table, and I think that makes it neat because it's fast paced, relatively fast paced as a ping pong is going to be, interaction with the real world. A lot of AR stuff where you're using a table and stuff, it's just you're just setting objects like, you know, a little teddy bear or a soda can or something on a table, and it's there. This is actually balls, the ping pong ball hitting it and reacting at the right angle and bouncing off. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. You know, a lot of people won't get it, and it's, you know, again, it's not anything we're going to see anytime soon ourselves, but still cool nevertheless.
You know, one of my worries about AR in general is I worry about it from the standpoint that it's one of these things where when you first see it, it really has that gee whiz effect. But I also feel like it may have the shortest honeymoon of like anything out there ever. Like, well, I mean, maybe it's just bad AR is what I'm thinking about. But I saw this, like there's some adult film company that I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was like a not safe for work post on one. I don't know if it was Oculus or something, but they were showing like this lady standing there, and it was like in AR and stuff. And just looking at it, to me, it's like this is one of these things where someone's going to see it and it's going to have that real gee whiz factor. Like, whoa, that's really cool that they can do that. But then a week later, you're like, I don't even care about this. Like, I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned because like Magic Leap also had a little demo that they came out with very recently where it showed this like polygonal lady sitting on a sofa, and the polygonal model was incredibly simple. And when like the person got closer to the polygonal model, like you could see through the polygonal model. And I'm kind of worried. I'm a little bit worried now that it's like, is this really going to blow me away? Like, I don't know.
I don't think, honestly, I don't think any of these first generation products will blow me away. I think, honestly, I think I've got a relatively good idea of what to expect, based on sort of what Apple are doing with the iPhone and Android. You know, Google are doing with their AR stuff, and how well that kind of stuff works. Even to transition that to a headset which you wear, I think there's so many problems with it. And part of this video from Leap Motion that excites me is the fact that although we're not necessarily there yet, and even with this product, it could be many, many years away. It just points to the future, and it's honestly the potential of this stuff more than anything else. And like you, Anthony, I'm not really hugely impressed by some of the videos or the tech demos that I'm seeing of these products. But when it gets to a point where these do replace our mobile phones, and that's the point that excites me more than anything else, I think that's really where I focus my enthusiasm for these kinds of AR products, because I think having AR that you wear and is, you know, everybody wears, and it does replace mobile phones is the most exciting thing of any of this stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I think you and I know I'm repetitive and I say the same crap every time we talk about AR, but like it's all about the utility. So like think of this ping pong. Have you seen the video with the ping pong table, Anthony?
Yeah.
So instead of the ping pong table, picture it's a driving range for golf. And you're learning. I don't know if you've ever golfed. I can't do it. It's hard. It's one of those things that has a real steep learning curve to learn how to drive right and control the ball. But picture you're at a driving range and you're trying to learn how to drive the ball, and it's able to show you, you know, which way to hit the ball and how to slice and do all the different things. Or maybe you're a baseball player and you're learning how to do different pitches, screw balls and all this stuff. I don't know anything really about baseball other than pitching can be complicated. And, you know, think of it in that way. If they're able to intertwine the two worlds together, you know, for just simple thing of sports. I know you are a sports fan. Like having that information overlay is going to be super cool. So I guess I'm the optimistic one of the bunch here. I think this is pretty cool. So
one of the things that I noticed though is like, you know, when the ball hits the table, it's like all of this AR stuff. You see somebody walking around or whatever, and what I immediately notice, and this is something like if I gave it to my mom or somebody, they're not going to notice this, but I notice it immediately. Like the foot doesn't look like it's really connecting with the ground. The ball doesn't look like it's really hitting the table. Like it's kind of like, we're on the inside. We understand how this stuff works, and until the illusion is so powerful that I really feel like the ball is really hitting the surface of the table and it's really reacting to that surface, I feel like it's just going to be a gee whiz thing for a day or two, and then the honeymoon period is going to fade away. And it's like, where are we now? I mean, I'm still excited for Magic Leap, because the thing I'll say about Magic Leap is, like, people that see it seem to be truly blown away. There has to be something going on, and these little demos that we're seeing, I don't think is everything. And I think sometimes when you're having an experience, and the experience is moving around and it's occupying a lot of different surfaces, maybe then your brain that is like focusing on, oh, that foot really isn't touching the ground, her butt isn't really touching the sofa, like maybe that part of your brain will turn off after a little while, and you'll just accept the experience, and then that's when it really becomes magical. But I don't know, but I haven't tried any of this in person, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass a little bit as far as that goes. So
You're muted, Gary.
Sorry, I don't know whether to bring this up or not, because the the Theranos thing with the universal blood test and that kind of stuff. There's a book come out called Bad Blood, and I was watching a few things about that. And I can go off on a tangent about this because I don't know a lot about it. In all honesty, I only know really what I've read and watched in the past couple of weeks about it. But it does make me a little bit apprehensive about Magic Leap because of the amount of funding that Theranos got from big players, and it all turned out to be a fabrication. So, I think there's something to take on board with that. But at the same time, because that's the one thing I'm clinging on to, the fact that Google and all of these huge companies are investing this much money in Magic Leap, I'm hoping for the long term. I'm not thinking Magic Leap 1. I'm thinking for the long term. Hopefully they have got something that will be something significant. But it does put that little bit of doubt in my mind about this stuff. I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that at all.
Either way, Magic Leap wins, right? Like, either they have something legit and they're going to have an amazing product and all the money they've raised has been totally warranted, or they have pulled off one of the biggest con jobs in tech. Either way, they win, right? Like, either way, they're billionaires. So, I mean, I can't kudos.
Until they go to jail.
Yeah.
Well, the difference between, like, I mean, the Theranos or whatever that company was called is, like, the lady that started that, I don't believe she, like, did anything super significant prior to that, where Roni Abovitz, like, he sold a surgical company for over $1 billion, like a legitimate surgical operating company. So it's not... the idea that this is some elaborate hoax and that eventually the scam is going to be like, man, they're going through a lot of smoke and mirrors. And then also the FCC, like this, we're not bringing this news topic up, but the Magic Leap controller, the FCC, recently announced or like revealed that they have documentation on that, and there's a little bit of talk about that as far as there's this 180-day period where Magic Leap requested, that they keep all those materials. They have the option of requesting that they keep those materials secret for 180 days or not. And after 180 days, it's out there. And so some people are using that information to speculate that Magic Leap 1 would have to be launched by December 18th or something like that. So anyway, it just seems like I really think like Magic Leap is a real thing. Now, whether or not it's going to be as groundbreaking as some of us might hope it is a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, hope so. We can all live in hope, because at the end of the day, I think honestly, we're all optimistic about this stuff. We want to experience all of these great things, and like I say, I think that's part of my optimism for Magic Leap. In spite of what I've just mentioned, I still do have this underlying optimism for Magic Leap, and I hope it does does sort of deliver when it's eventually released. Okay, so we always talk about this. It's going to be a short show, but I don't think it will be. So let's get on to a few games that we've been playing, and the main one is Echo Combat. So this is an open beta at the moment. So, well, I say at the moment, it's from the 21st to the 24th of June. So we're recording this show on the 24th of June. So, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have already given this a try anyway. But I've been into this a few times, but before I get into my impressions, let's go over to Steve. What did you think of Echo Combat?
I thought it was very good. It's hard. It's new, so it's new to me. So I feel like I like it more than I liked Echo Arena, and I don't know if it's because you have a gun or what it is. Like the throwing the disc of Echo Arena, like I could never get really comfortable with it. You know, it's kind of like throwing a frisbee, but with a frisbee you let go. And maybe that's what the new Knuckles, like maybe that's going to solve throwing objects. Like a lot of times when I throw objects in VR, whether it's grenades and Fallout or whatever, it doesn't quite feel right because I have to hold on to the controller still. In Echo Combat, you're not throwing a disc, so you're not, you know, kind of, it's not one constraint that you're battling. I thought it was incredibly fun. I was on a very dominant team for a while, and we kept getting paired up together, and we were just winning match after match after match after match, which is unusual for me in Echo Arena. I didn't have a win streak like I had in Echo Combat, but what it is in a nutshell, the game mode is I don't know what to call the game mode, but it's attack and defense. We'll just call it that because that's what the game refers to it as. So if you're orange team, you're on attack, and you when you get into the arena, there's a swan. It's this weird floating swan, almost like a gondola. And the developers, I think, just put a swan in there because, I mean, they could have put a frog, they could have put anything, but they chose a swan. And you grab onto the swan, and it starts moving along this track. And your goal is to just hold on to this swan as a team and get it to the other side of the arena. And if you do, you win the match. If you're on defense, your goal is to stop the other team. So when there's no player that's on offense touching the swan will stop. And you can actually, if you're on defense, you can repel the swan. And I didn't know this till pretty late. So it's a unique game mode, and from an interface or from how you deal with other players, compared differently to Echo Arena, is that you have a gun, and so you shoot, and it's a small little. Well, there's a couple guns, but it's small. And one of the things interesting is because it's small and it sort of comes out of the top of your hand, it doesn't break the immersion. You can still use that hand to grab onto surfaces. And that was one of the things I didn't know how they were going to handle it when I heard the new Echo game would have guns. It's very different than if you're holding a pistol. You can't really grab onto a wall at the same time. So they handled that whole thing quite nicely. And it's, you know, one other thing I guess I'll say is you have a special power for the two that you can have in the beta is you can heal, or you can have this sort of blast, this information blast. I forget what they call it exactly in game, but it'll reveal the location of the enemies. It'll sort of ping them, and they'll show up in red. You can see where they are through walls. So when I was on the really good teams where we were winning match after match, like we actually strategized before the match, and you know, we made sure we had two people that were healers and one person with the other tac mod that could reveal the enemy locations, especially if we're on defense. And it all worked really well. It's a good game to strategize with, it being 3-on-3, so you're not trying to strategize with 8 versus 8 where, you know, things can get chaotic. I think it works really well, and this thing's only going to be $10. Like, yeah, you should buy it. I've only played the beta, and I've only played it yesterday, and I've played enough of it to know that it's without question easily worth the $10 asking price.
Yeah. Anthony, just on Echo Combat. So you, I know we've all played Echo Arena as well. How do you think this compares to it? Do you prefer Echo Arena or Echo Combat? And what do you think of Echo Combat in general?
Well, first, I just want to say Echo VR. You know, this whole Echo VR thing. Like I was really impressed when I first got in there, just in terms of how they arranged the entire thing. It's like this big facility almost, and it's like Echo Combat is like on one side of the facility and Echo Arena is on the other, and it's all kind of integrated, and you're going through like the lobby areas, and there's like these huge instruction panels that kind of tell you, how the game is played, and people are kind of just mingling about in there, floating around. You always hear a lot of little kids, and it's always amazing how many little kids are screwing around in VR. And I was really impressed by this, because you might remember that I said that I was really disappointed when I first saw Echo Combat that it's just the same backgrounds, kind of Echo Arena. And I was hoping that it was kind of going to have a little bit of more of a lone Echo-ish kind of thing. And I think I said that, I'm more excited for Space Junkies now. Now I'm actually worried for Space Junkies, because this is so good and so smooth. Remember, I'm on a 970 low-end PC, bare minimum PC. Everything just runs smooth as butter. And it's just such a dialed in overall experience altogether. I'm still not a multiplayer guy, and I still kind of feel apprehensive. Like, for me, the only way I would ever really get into Echo Combat is like if I could just, and they do have an area that kind of has bots in a way. They have these moving characters that are, it's almost like a shooting gallery. Like, you can kind of practice a little bit, but it's not like the full game that you can practice with bots. And the only way that I would probably get super comfortable with this is if I could practice with bots doing the whole entire thing, healing people, and using my special abilities and using your little disc thing there is something that you throw, Steve, the like grenade thing that you have. But yeah, I was super impressed by the whole deal. What I'm curious about though is, so Echo Combat is $10, but now they have this Echo VR, and Echo Arena is still free, right? So in the future, like, let's say you never bought Echo Combat, you're going to be in this Echo VR thing. And I guess when you get over near the Echo Combat side, it'll just like have a wall and say, sorry, you better buy this or something. Like, that'll just be sealed off, I guess.
I imagine, I don't know what they're going to do, but I think they should keep the train, because I think it says Echo Combat Training before you go into that room. And that's where you can play. I bet they should keep that open. Let you go into the training, and then on the terminal where you choose whether you want to launch an arena match or a combat match, is just that stays grayed out. And if you haven't paid the $10, that's what they should do to kind of get people who haven't taken the plunge. They still get to feel what it's like to shoot the gun and all that, and as a sort of a temptation model.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually, because I think people that do give this a try, I think they'll really enjoy it. And like you, Anthony and Stevie, I'm not really a multiplayer guy, but this really won me over. I think this is absolutely fantastic. The thing about it, because when I first went into it, it was on the first day of the beta, and a lot of times, if you're on the attacking team rather than the defensive team, you stood almost no chance of getting anywhere. And yet, I played it yesterday again, and the tide had turned. People had started to work out little strategies in order to get this swan moving through the level, and work out ways in order to combat the defensive team. Because originally, when I first played this, I was thinking, if you're the defensive team, you are almost guaranteed a win on this. The balancing just seemed completely false to me. So that was the first thing. And literally every game I played in, the defensive team won, and won by a significant margin as well. And yet, as time went on, it became far more balanced. So I think as people get to know all the little mechanics of this game, it's going to work out really well. But yeah, like you, I think I love this far more than Echo Arena. And I think it probably goes back to what Steve was saying about the throwing disc, because I never really got on with that. And I know that there is this disc that you can throw, and I don't really get on with that. I can't aim it too well, and maybe I just need a little bit more practice. But yeah, I absolutely love this. And the shooting mechanic, because Lone Echo, we've played through Lone Echo, we've played through Echo Arena. There's no shooting, there's nothing like that in there. And yet having that ability and for it to feel as good as it does in this game, because it does feel good to shoot that gun and to get your target, it really does feel good. So yeah, I'm going to be playing more of this. I just need to ride this wave because I know I'm not going to be able to put as much time in, and I'm not naturally as gifted as some other players in terms of these shooters. So I know I'm not going to stand a chance later on once it's been out for a few months. So I'm going to just give myself a few weeks when it's released and put myself into it then. But hopefully I can get okay at it. I don't know. I was doing okay when I played the beta anyway.
So I think I don't know if attack or defense is lopsided with all else being equal. I think it's going to be lopsided for the team that can work better together. Like you, I thought defense might be sort of have the upper hand because the first match I played was defense, and we came up to that room right before where the swan comes out. And we pinned them in that room, and they didn't leave that room the entire match. We just had them pinned in. We split up, and we were almost at a point where we could constantly heal the whole time. And, but when we became offense, we were all playing the same teams. We just flipped between attack and defense, and that the other team tried using our strategy against us. And we basically sent a decoy out. I went out holding the swan, knowing I was going to get their attention. And as I came out, the two guys that I was playing with, they flanked to the left and right and basically came behind the people that were all shooting me. I was a sacrificial lamb. I died, no question. But they cleared that first initial room. And once you clear that first initial room, that initial defense that starts the match, then things are broken up. It's hard for them to get all three of their players back together to solidify, because there's one person dead sort of at all times, so you're turning over the deaths and the respawns. So yeah, I think it's a great cooperative game. Like if you work as a team, and again, I'm repeating myself, but it being 3-on-3 is sort of perfect for strategizing. Sort of pre-match. Like you don't. If it was 8v8, like I said, like it would be so hard to coordinate. 3-on-3 is perfect.
Imagine a battle royale. Lone Echo, because that might happen. Who knows? But no, the one thing I wanted to ask both of you as well, like something that I think Anthony touched on a little bit earlier, is it's very similar to Lone Echo in aesthetic. So you're in these sort of self-contained levels and this kind of stuff. I would love a more open level, like around a space station or something like that. And maybe that's what you were alluding to, Anthony. I'm not too sure. But like within Lone Echo, the game where you're around this space station, to have some kind of, even like a death match, not necessarily to do this attack and defense kind of game mode, but just a death match around a space station within this zero gravity format. I think that would be fantastic. Have you got any other ideas around that where they could expand this stuff?
I just the visual style of it. I mean, I give them credit, for because the visual style, this way before I ever had VR, like this is the type of thing that I imagined VR would be. And it's here, and maybe it's not necessarily my specific genre, but I really did. I mean, they've just done a fantastic job with it. It just works so good. I mean, especially like the inverse kinematics, because I haven't been in Lone Echo or Echo Arena for so long that I just forgot how good like their inverse like just grabbing onto things and pushing yourself off and just seeing your arms and your hands and looking at their rendering engine, the lighting, kind of the Tron style of it all. I mean, it's just, this really is, there should be a lot more talk about this. And I think mainstream gamers should be talking about this a little bit more too.
I think they will. Like I tried playing, so the beta, I think it started on Friday and it runs through today. It's pretty short open beta. I want to say all night, but I tried like 2 or 3 times late on Friday, couldn't get into a match. Tried early on Saturday, couldn't get into a match. And it wasn't until about midday yesterday that I was able to start getting in matches, and I was getting in matches within 20 seconds of a previous match ending. So whatever they've done server side, they've kind of got it balanced out. So there may be a lot of people that wanted to play it, and I was concerned that I wasn't going to get any time with it, even though I kept trying over and over. But there were probably people that wanted to play it this weekend and couldn't, just because the matchmaking wasn't working well. But once they get all that dialed out and the game comes out, I do think this is going to get talked about quite a bit.
Yeah, hope so. Okay, on to the next game, which we received the key for. This is Virtual Reality. So this has been out for a while. It's by the developer Tender Claws. And this is available on the Oculus Rift, but also available on the Oculus Go. We've all played it on the Oculus Rift anyway. So this is, I tell you, this is a weird one. When I first went into this, I didn't really know what to expect. I had heard of this game before, but I didn't really sort of watch any videos on it or anything like that. So I didn't know what to expect or what this was all about. But you go into this game and you play this human, which is in this futuristic world. It's almost sort of reminiscent of Job Simulator in some ways, but it's also got aspects of accounting, like that kind of game where it's a series of mini games, and you go in very different environments, and you do very sort of basic tasks in order to work your way through that scene. So, you know, as a gameplay wise, it's very varied, and it's also probably more, I'd categorize this more of an experience than a game. But I think it's got a lot going for it. There's a lot of humor in there. It's difficult to really describe it, and in all honesty, I don't want to go too deep with the description of it, because there's a few things that go on with the narrative of it where you don't want to give anything away. So Anthony, you've played this. What did you think?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is, if you are part of the 420 crowd, this game is for you. This game was built for you. It's just the thing about this game is, like, it's the comedy factor, and what I was impressed with was all the different voices and the different dialogue and stuff that's in here. This is, I mean, I haven't heard that much about this game. I heard about it a little bit here and there, but I think there should be more talk about this, because I mean, I want to continue to play this and see all these weird, wacky worlds. I'm kind of into this whole, I mean, well, this game is kind of like AI, and like, it's like this AI future where humans are kind of relegated to basically being entertainment for AI, really. And it's just really cool how they go through that. And you just, the core concept of this is like, you could be zapped into all kinds of truly whacked out worlds that is very creative, and it's impressive to me. It's very impressive. And what Gary was saying is, it really isn't a game. You're not like pushing buttons and trying to really do, it is more experiential, but man, the voices and stuff, I mean, I don't want to spoil it either, but did anybody get to the part where there's like a flower? Just some of the voices, there's like a flower or a plant thing that you talk to.
Yeah. And the pinwheel.
Yeah, the pinwheel.
Yeah,
the pinwheel.
Yeah.
Oh man, just the voices and the little things that, like, it's really good, really good. I'm very impressed. This is $7.50. I think this is a great game. I give thumbs up to this, and I barely scratched the surface of it.
Ironically, I am showing some gameplay that I captured of the pinwheel section. Just as you were mentioning that, how conveniently timed. I think this was a surprise for me. I was expecting some sort of indie experience that was simplistic and maybe worked well or whatever, but I was really surprised at just how well put together it was. You guys have both said it's not really a game; it's more of an experience. I would qualify that with, it's an interactive experience. Yeah, it's not really gamey. It's not Beat Saber or you're not shooting anything, but you do interact with it a fair amount. So yeah, it does fall sort of in between game and experience in my book. But either way, like the game is very colorful. It's very vibrant, but it has so the gist of it is. It's called virtual reality, so it's like virtual reality inception. You go in VR, and in your VR, your Oculus Rift, and then you can don virtual headsets within those worlds, so you're always snapping in and out of all these different worlds, and they've made sure that they all have a very different color palette and overall feel to them. Like 1 second you're in this weird room that where you can control these sort of it almost looks like a sound isolation chamber, and it's just this weird graphical effect, and then the next second you're underwater, and the next second you're up in the clouds, and I think that's all a very, very, very cool dichotomy. Objectively or sort of narratively, what you are is, and Gary, you mentioned sort of has some touches of Job Simulator, and I don't think this is spoilery at all, but you have this task, you're given this job of sort of going around and doing these random jobs for clients. This company that you apparently work for, they lend you out or hire you out to just go out and please people. It's almost like you're a prostitute, but not sexually. Like you just, whatever these people need, you go and do it. Or these characters, let's say characters, those are not people. And it's just really bizarre and zany, and the tasks that you're given to do. And if you do them well, you get a positive rating or you get a negative rating. I'm pretty sure this is all scripted. You can't actually control your rating in any way, but it gives it all a nice cohesion, because what would otherwise be just these random created worlds that you snap in and out of. So again, it's like you said, $750 or $799 here in the US. It gets a recommend for me because it's a pretty low entry price, and from what I've seen, like in the sort of the home area or where you start, once you kind of go through the early tutorial, there's a wall of like, feels like maybe 30 or 50 cubes, and those seem like all the jobs that you need to go out and accomplish, and I've done like 6. So it seems like it's not just a 30-minute experience or an hour experience. This may be something that you can get 3-4 hours out of, and it's also very funny. My daughter snuck into the room while I was playing it, and through that one part you were talking about with the pinwheel, and I didn't know she was in here, and the thing happens, and she just dies laughing. Like I hear her laughter over the headphones, and so it's real cute but dark humor in a way. I think you mentioned it being a little bit like accounting. It's like a clean version of accounting in that sense. So I think it's great, and yeah, go buy this, and it's available for the Oculus Go too, which that may make you're missing the 6DOF, of course, but this might be the type of game that actually suits itself for the portable pick up and go. So I'd be very curious as to how it plays on the Oculus Go, and that might be a better place to actually get it if you have an Oculus Go. What do you think, Gary?
Well, no, I was just going to agree with you, because I think that the takeaway for me when I first played this game, and I've not done quite as many as you, probably about 5 of the levels, something like that. But it's the tonal differences between this. It's not just humorous. There's, I don't know, the building one, the city. Yeah. So that's not really a humorous level. I guess you could sort of say it is, but it's also very tonally somber in many ways. But so it's got all these diverse little tones within this game as well, which really make it stand out. It's not just playing through one tone all the way through this game. There's a lot going on here. And actually, I was very impressed with it in a few different ways. I wouldn't say, I don't want to overhype this or anything for anybody that's not played it. It is a series of very experiential mini games, really, which is good in itself, and I think they priced it correctly. I think this is perfect for the price point, but there's a lot of interest you can get a lot of interest out of each of these experiences. Yeah, I loved it.
One quick thing, did either of you guys have a problem with the main announcer that you're talking to, like when you first get in there, like that main robot or whatever that you're talking to? Did anybody else have this problem where his volume level was like way the hell higher than it should be? Like every time I've started up this game, I have to like take off my headset and like go back to my PC and really lower the volume, because for some reason his voice level is like way the hell too high. I don't know if I didn't get that. No, not for me.
Okay. But as you say, Steve, this is also available on the Oculus Go, presumably Gear VR as well. But yeah, I think this is a great experience for that platform because I don't think you necessarily need the 6 DOF or anything like that to enjoy this. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Okay, so let's go over to catch and release. Again, we received a key for this game. So this is developed by Metric Minds, and it's $19.99 on Steam. And well, I'll go over it because I didn't spend a lot of time with this, but I'll go over to Steve first on this one. What did you think of catch and release?
I think it is the best fishing game in VR that I've played. I think I've played most of them. I'm not sure. There have been several games that attempted, and this one has. It's simple. It's very chill. It's very relaxing, and I think it works really well. It strikes a very good balance between game and realism. Because you can have a very, I guess, arcadey type fishing game where you just you constantly have a fish on your hook and you're just reeling it in. This one here, if you just sort of throw a lure out there, you won't necessarily get a bite, so to speak. So I really like this game. One of the things, and it may be part of what they were going for, there wasn't much of a tutorial, so it was when I had my first fish on the hook, I didn't know the mechanics. I didn't know how to reel him in, and I kept breaking hooks, or in this case, the fish keeps getting away. It doesn't actually break your hook. But I had to actually go and read what to do with the mechanics. So again, maybe we're playing this on our press account. So maybe you guys already did the tutorial and I didn't see it. I did hit the reset tutorial abilities. I'll chime in if you guys ever got instructions, but I didn't get instructions on how to actually reel in a fish. So I had to look that up. But yeah, I really like this one. At $20, I think maybe 15 would be a little more fitting. But it's really good. And one of the things I haven't mentioned is that you're on this boat and you have the 2 oars at each side, and you can grab the oars and you can actually row the boat and you go anywhere on this lake. And there's also some life to this world. I was out in the middle of the lake, and then I looked up on shore, and there was like a big grizzly bear just kind of standing at the shore. It stood up on its hind legs, and they didn't have to do that, but it was a nice little thing. Like I'm trying to fish and I look over and there's this grizzly bear over there. So it was a nice little bonus or whatever. It was completely not needed, but also I'm glad they did it to kind of give the world a little bit of life. And you hear birds and sounds that you would expect to hear at a lake. So if you want a fishing game in VR, I'd say this is the one to go for.
Yeah, they've done a great job in terms of ambience, but also, I mean, it's a very good-looking game. When you're out there on this boat in the middle of this lake, very scenic lake, it looks great. And similar to some other things like a guided meditation VR and those kinds of experiences. It's just a nice, relaxing, ambient atmosphere. But there is also a game there beneath. So the tutorial, I had to reset the tutorial as well, actually. So I don't know what was going on there, but I reset the tutorial and played through to it showed me how to reel fish in. And when you've got this book in front of you, there's a lot of different types of fish to catch, and you use different techniques, different tackle, different bait in order to catch the different kinds of fish as well. So there is a game here, and what you do is you can either release the younger fish, and then you can keep the older fish and put them in the cooler at the back, and then you can sell them at the shop and then gain more equipment in order to help you catch the fish that are later on. So there's definitely quite a substantial game here. I've played a very small amount of it, but I've got to say I was impressed with what I've played so far. It's nice and relaxing. It looks great, and it's really what you want from a fishing game. I can't think of anything that they could do to improve it at this point.
Now, I played it standing up, but if I had a chair that didn't have a back to it, I think I'd like to try it out that way, because in the boat, you're seated in the boat sort of,
Yeah.
and everything is right there within arm's reach. I think that would actually be one of the very rare cases where playing seated actually adds to the to the realism, because on this type of boat, there's no way you could stand up and just turn around like I was in my room. But I think it's pretty cool. Anthony, did you had issues getting into it, didn't you?
Yeah, it's weird. Like everything you guys are saying is like, I almost feel like I was playing a completely different game. And I don't know if this was something like a performance thing or something, but when I got into the game, well, I had a problem with the standing thing. Like I really felt like I should probably be sitting down for this game, but I just kept playing it standing. And just the controls, like I just could not wrap my head around the controls, and I don't know that it really gave me a tutorial. Like every once in a while I'd be moving my controllers around and it would like tell me to hit this button or that button, but it would kind of be like the menu that whatever it was trying to tell me would be like hidden behind something else, and it was just really janky. And so like one of the things I noticed too is like my fishing pole seemed like it was 15 feet long. Like it didn't seem like the length of a normal fishing pole. And so the main issue that I had with this is I got my fishing pole, and you figure like anybody that's ever gone fishing, you hold your fishing pole like this and you flick it and you like hit the button at a certain time, right? And then it lets the thing go and it goes flying. Like you cast your line, right? I could no matter what I did. I mean, I guess I wasn't reading the instructions right or whatever, but I could never get it to go flying. It just always kind of flopped.
You have to hold the trigger down, so it's like releasing it, and then did you hold it down or did you press the trigger?
No, I just pressed it to kind of like flick it. Okay,
yeah,
so
I
maybe
think you have to
be holding it the whole time and then let go.
You have to so you swing it back, and then when you get to the point that you need to release the line, you just hold the trigger down and it will fly out in front of you then. So that's what you need to do. You don't want to just press it. You need to hold the trigger down while it's sort of releasing the line in.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if it was a performance thing or what, but I mean, I actually caught a fish and put it in the cooler and stuff, but just everything seemed super janky to me. But maybe it was like a 970 thing or something. I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird because I didn't get any jankiness from this at all. Yeah, I actually thought it was pretty polished, to be honest.
The first time I loaded it up, there was no sound. I have a lot of sound issues with my Rift where like I won't hear the sound or the sound will be too loud, and like I don't know.
I have those issues if I bounce a lot between an Oculus game and then a Steam game. Like if I'm going back and forth, it seems like it wants to lose its mind a little bit. If I stay in one store or the other, it works reasonably well. But yeah, that's just part of the compared to say like PlayStation VR where it just works. I think that's one of the things I'm willing to or I have to acknowledge that I'm giving up playing in the PC Master Race space is that there's always so many conflicts that could be happening, and you just got to deal with the stuff.
Yep. Okay. So let's go on to we've got it's the last game. We've got a few experiences to talk about as well. But Soviet Lunar Park again. We received a key for this one, but this is actually I don't know how much we can talk about this one. Steve, you and I gave it a try. What happened?
So yeah, I didn't even think we were going to talk about it because we couldn't get it to work. It's a game that I haven't heard too much about, but looking at it, it looked really, really well. And we received a key to check it out, and hopefully whatever's going on it gets dialed in. But you boot the game up, and it immediately launches you into a tutorial if you hadn't played the game before. And I played through the tutorial just fine. It seemed pretty cool, but then playing it afterwards, like as soon as you're done with the tutorial, it tries to launch you into the main game. All I get was a black screen. And I thought, it was just my setup. Going way back, I had an issue with the old Bullet Train demo on Oculus where I just couldn't play it for some reason or the other. I reinstalled Windows and was able to play it. So I just kind of thought it was just one of those kind of random, just not going to play on my PC. Chris has talked about how he could never get Batman Arkham VR to play. There's no reason why. It's just things just happening on PC. So I chalked it up as that, and then I asked you, and you had told me, well, you had the same problem, and I went to the Steam discussion forums, and I made a post like, hey, is anybody having this issue? And I had a few responses where people were having the same issue. It doesn't launch you into the game, and it just stays on a black screen. So I guess consider this a PSA of sorts. Like they have some kind of bug going on, and they need to fix it, and maybe you don't want to buy this game until that's fixed. But otherwise, I did check out a video of it on YouTube and some other Let's Plays, and it looks like a very fun game. It almost looks like a Killing Floor type game. There's some multiplayer aspects. Killing Floor mixed with a little bit of Dimension Hunter, because you get a lot of the comic, or Robo Recall, you get a lot of the comic pop-ups from when you're hitting the people, like the comic fonts that say things like blam or something like that. I seem to remember. So I know you weren't able to get into it, Gary, but did you try it, Anthony? Were you able to get into it?
Yeah, I tried it, and so I got into the tutorial, and when I was in the tutorial, it was very herky-jerky. Like it just, like it never, when you're using your Oculus and it'll show you like that little hourglass thing, like that kept coming up a lot, and kind of like it would be like, it's almost like showing you two views, and you're like waiting for it to like do its thing or whatever. That happened a lot. What happened to me though is when it got to the point to put me into the game, I was in the game, but I was underwater, and I could see the world. I could see the world up there where I should have been, but I was underwater, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get out of the water, and like my controllers disappeared, and I was just under the water, and I could see like characters up there, like that's the game.
You got into the game though. Oh,
yeah,
I didn't realize you got into the game. Yeah, because I had the same problem with Steve. It just wouldn't go beyond the tutorial. It was just a black screen.
So when you got past the tutorial, Anthony, was it a long time before it loaded the game? Were you just more patient than me?
It wasn't like a super long time.
Okay.
Yeah. I waited a long time.
I think I waited a good at least minute and a half, 2 minutes on multiple tries, and rebooting the computer and everything. So there's definitely something there. Again, it looks like it could be a good game if you can get into it. So we'll keep trying, or no, I'll try, and maybe next show we'll be able to talk about it in better detail. But sort of a buyer's beware that there's maybe a game-breaking bug with the current version or something. I haven't heard anybody respond from the developer yet, so it'll be interesting how it turns out.
I was just going to say, one thing you can try if you have a game that doesn't load up right is you go into your Steam library, and you find the game, and then you right click on it, and you go into properties, and then I think it might be like game files or something that you click on, and then there will be one that is like
verify. I think it says verify file integrity or something like that. Yeah. I'll do that.
Sometimes
that might be a good idea. Yeah. Or see if there's some beta or some other version that you can roll back to.
Yeah, I mean, like you, Steve, I will say that from the tutorial, which is a very small amount of gameplay, it seemed okay. Things like the scale and things of the hands were a little bit off, but it was okay.
The tutorial, the zombies in the tutorial reminded me of Dead Effect 2 VR, like a lot.
Yeah. They weren't bad, actually. I thought the models were good, the graphics were good, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we can rattle through the next couple of news stories. So the first one I just want to, not news stories, the experiences we've been playing. The first one I want to talk about is a GameBoy emulator. So this came about last week or the week before. Somebody posted on Reddit that they had sort of adapted a GameBoy emulator for the Oculus Go. And I gave this a try. I've got to say, this is sort of, it brings more and more value to this product, which is only sort of £200, $200. It brings all of this value to this. It's incredible that the fact you've got this library of games, and it's not the Game Boy. I'm not a huge Game Boy fan or anything like that. But the fact that you can run all these emulators on it, potentially, and I'm hoping they'll do like a Super Nintendo or something like that emulator at some point. Obviously, I've legally obtained all the ROMs, and I've put them on in adherence to any laws in any country whatsoever. But so the Game Boy emulator, so it sort of projects a screen in front of you, and you've got a lot of options where you can move it further away, increase its size, or reduce it down. But it just works the way you want it to work. It's only got like a plain black background, and then you can play any of these Game Boy games on a Xbox controller. But I'm just thinking Super Nintendo or Mega Drive or something like that. These are the ones that I would love to play in the Oculus Go. So I just wanted to quickly mention that because
how do you get the ROMs into the file that, or does it come with some ROMs already in it or something? Or?
No, it doesn't come with any ROMs. So you just connect the Oculus Go to a PC, and then you just have to copy them into a folder within the Oculus Go.
Okay. I don't have an Oculus Go, and I was just curious. I don't know. I for some reason I assumed that you would be stuck with just whatever the Oculus Store had. I didn't know that there was an option, so you can actually get into folders and stuff if you connect your Go to a PC. So potentially somebody could have something maybe on GitHub or something, and you might be able to run it on your Go.
Well, there's some stuff I think you got to unlock a developer mode before you can actually sideload apps. So you can drag and drop through the file explorer. You can add movies. That's how I loaded the movie that I watched when I was on the airplane. So you can add movies. You can add files, but it won't actually run any applications. So if you were to acquire a backup of an actual game or something, if you just drop that in there, it won't run it.
So how did it run this thing?
Because the game. It sounds like chime in, Gary, but the game you downloaded from the Oculus Store, it's only the ROMs that were being pulled from the files.
No. So how it works, it's similar, but what it is, so you can download it exactly the same as you were suggesting there, Anthony. So you download this file from GitHub, and then you have to install it using ADB, which is, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's an Android thing that can transfer files to the Oculus Go. And then what it is, it will appear in the Oculus Go is unknown sources, I believe it is. It's unknown sources, and then you can just select it from there. So it doesn't appear in the same way as a normal application, but yeah.
Is yours in developer mode? Because I was reading about how to get Minecraft. So you got to go through the same process to get Minecraft, because they don't have Minecraft natively in the Oculus Store for the Oculus Go, which doesn't make sense because the Go should be able to run it just fine. So some people I was reading on the Go forums, they were saying, well, yeah, you go into developer mode and you do this ADB thing that you're talking about. And if you buy it on a Gear VR, then you can take that file and you can sideload it onto the Go. But it just seemed like a lot of jumps. But anytime you're reading about this stuff, it may seem like more jumps than it really is. So it sounds like you had to do something similar.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, it's not like a straightforward thing necessarily, but it's not like, you follow the instructions and you'll do it. There won't be any problems. Although with this ADB, I did have a couple of problems because the version that's on Oculus.com at the moment didn't actually work with my Oculus Go for some reason. I needed to download an older version, but that's really the only hiccup that I had with this. There's a lot of guides to guide you through this stuff, and it's not really sort of the rocket science or anything like that, but it's just it is a few hoops which any emulator, on any system, you're always going to have to jump through a few hoops to get them on there. But it works great, and very impressed. Can't wait for more emulators to come out.
This is super interesting to me because I have this this mobile arcade idea thing that I've been kicking around, and I wanted to use Oculus Go's in that, but then I found out that Oculus doesn't have any licensing plan for it yet. Although what I've found out from them personally is that after the Oculus Connect, which I think Oculus Connect 4, I believe, is in September this year, so. They're hoping to have actual, they're going to have their own deal for arcades for both Rift and Go. But the guy was telling me in regards to Oculus Go that if somehow I got it running separate from the store, that technically I wouldn't necessarily be like violating any kind of contracts or some, I wouldn't be setting myself up to be sued by Oculus or whatever. But so this is really interesting. I got to look into this.
Yeah, you can do Minecraft if you sideload. Apparently, you can do this emulator. I'm sure there's other like Gear VR apps that they haven't made compatible or official with the Go that you can probably sideload. But you have an issue. I don't know if you can buy. Maybe you can go to the website and buy a Gear VR app. Like even if I wanted to, I don't think I have a way to buy Minecraft like without the hardware. So I don't. I'm not saying you can't. I don't know. I initially wanted to get Minecraft for the Go, and I briefly looked into it. And it sounds very similar to what Gary is describing with the GameBoy emulator. But I don't know how I actually buy it for the Gear VR version. So that's something to look into.
What are your theories on this? Just before we move on, because I only want to cover one more little experience that we've been playing before we finish the show off. But I just wanted to ask you guys, because Minecraft is the game. It's the game that could be like the app that with the killer app, I suppose, for like the Oculus Go, because it's on Gear VR. Why wouldn't they bring it across to the Oculus Go? Have you got any theories on that, or is it just they're holding out for whatever reason?
It doesn't make any sense other than they just haven't inked out the deal. Like they're just not. I don't know that Minecraft is a big deal anymore. Like I think this would have been killer 5 years ago to have a VR Minecraft on a $200 device that like kids would have been playing it everywhere. But now it just seems like Minecraft is for the most part in the rear view mirror, and it's all about the Fortnite now.
Maybe, but it just seems crazy to me that it's on the Gear VR, not on the Oculus Go. And like you say, maybe they've got to hash out that deal. Maybe it's Microsoft holding out. They don't want it going out because maybe we don't know what's going on in the background. Could this be some indication of what Microsoft wants to do with Minecraft in VR? Because that's a title that is, I mean, it's very good in VR anyway.
But haven't you heard all around the internet, Microsoft and VR, blah, 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 all these stories? It's so dumb.
Yeah.
I couldn't say. Like, I think as soon as they make it available, I'm probably going to buy it. And I don't know why. I don't do anything in Minecraft. I think it's just the idea of having it. Like, it does seem like the perfect game, a more fully featured game, even though it's simple graphics and all that. Like, it seems like the one that would be really good for the Oculus Go.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's finish off this episode with just a quick discussion about Henry. So this is an experience that came out, I believe, was it at the launch of the Oculus Rift or maybe a little bit after, which was a rendered sort of video, really. It was just something that you could watch. It's about 5-10 minutes long, maybe. Quite impressive. But what they've done is they've re-released this on the Oculus Go as a 360 or 180 video. But John Carmack has sort of adapted it. He's using using various rendering techniques in order to get this up to like a 5K video rendering. And I tried this. I did try Henry on my Rift when I first got it. I didn't make it all the way through or anything like that, although it looked pretty good. But I wanted to try this just to see the difference in terms of like 360 or 180 video. I believe this is actually 360 video, Steve. Yeah. So, I mean, incredible. The clarity within the Oculus Go on this video. So it's a stereoscopic video. This is not a rendering. This is stereoscopic 360 video of a rendering of Henry, which the clarity is beyond anything that I've seen so far in pretty much any VR headset. And it did blow me away. And I've put my kids in there and they were blown away as well. They said, they actually mentioned to me after they came out that didn't look blurred. And I didn't prompt them. I didn't say, how did that look or anything like that. They just said it didn't look as blurred as other stuff that they've played. So I think that speaks volumes, really, because, I mean, it really does. Steve, you've seen this as well. What did you think?
I think it looks pretty close to the original experience. And like you're saying, John Carmack and his team, they were somehow developed a way to capture 360 video from the Henry runtime or the rendering. So back in the day when it first came out and you were playing it on your Rift or on your Vive, I guess through Revive. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't think it was never made available on Steam, but your computer, your GPU was rendering it like it would render any game. This is not what's happening on the Oculus Go. They've somehow captured the rendering in full stereoscopic view 360, and it looks pretty close. And maybe it's even looks better than on the Rift because of the Oculus Go having a higher resolution. That's even possible. I did notice on the sort of towards the top of his house, his ceiling is painted a little bit brighter. So I did notice the flicker, the 72 hertz or the 60 hertz, whichever this is running at. So I did notice that. But all in all, like I agree with you. Like bar none, no questions asked. This is the best looking video made available. I don't know if Carmack's technology could apply to things that aren't captured from a render. I still think there's issues. Like I don't think he could just plop a camera down and capture the real world with this fidelity. But it would be a good tool set for any of the passive content. Like, we always talk about video being important. If that's the case, there's nothing stopping, say, from a technological standpoint, from Pixar, whatever their next best movie is, or even going back to their library like Coco, that was done close enough that if Pixar still has all the 3D modeling, they could output it in stereoscopic. And this technology that Carmack has developed to do this could downplay it such a way that you didn't have to render in real time. And, it would be incredible to watch a full-length Pixar movie, the next best one that comes out. The Incredibles 2 just came out. So can you imagine watching Incredibles 2, your family sitting on the couch and, all 4 or 5 of you have Oculus Goes on, the dystopian future, right? But that would be, I think that would be really neat, and it'd be an incredible way of watching an animated, Pixar style, DreamWorks style film. Yeah, I was blown away by this. I've seen Henry. I'm probably not going to check it out again, but as a sort of a tech experiment, I think it's cool that Carmack was able to do this, and I hope it can be applied to other content moving forward. But I don't think, my hunch is that it's actually solved the issue of video, so to speak, like when it comes to recording actual people in real places.
Yeah, from my very layman's point of view, I think that's correct. I think the reason they're able to do this is because it's a lot easier to do whatever rendering technique Carmack is doing with this, because it was originally based on a 3D, like a CGI kind of experience rather than actual footage captured. But just on your point there, Steve, about clarity, I've got to say, when I tried this on the Rift, I was actually a little bit disappointed. I thought it was far more blurred on the Rift, and I've not done a side-by-side comparison, but when I went and tried it on the Oculus Go, the clarity blew me away. To me, it's far exceeded my experience on the Rift in terms of, like, it just seemed far more pixelated on the Rift than it did on the Go.
Well, I'd have to go back. It's been a long time since I've done Henry, but back when I did it, I had a GTX 1070 and I wasn't super sampling, and everything's a little bit different now, so I'd have to go back and do an A/B. But yeah, this was very clear. And in fact, just on going between the Go and the Rift in general, I haven't played my Oculus Go much this week, and I've actually played a fair amount. In addition to the games we played, I've played a fair amount of Fallout. And when I first got into, from the last time I played my Go and jumped back into my Rift, like, I felt the lens degradation and I felt the resolution degradation, and it's just completely bonkers that my $200 portable VR headset has such higher fidelity than my dedicated, supposedly high-end PC headset when it comes to just the optical clarity and the display resolution. I actually hate, almost in a way, going back and forth between the two. So I'd have to check out Henry again on my Rift to kind of A/B it, and I might do that as an experience this afternoon. But yeah.
It's the God rays for me. The God rays are the main thing, the detractor for the Rift. But I guess, it's sort of encouraging in a way, because it's 2 years removed. The Go is 2 years removed from the Rift, and this is the advancement that they've made. And they're able to put that lens technology in a $200 device. So I think that's actually encouraging in the long run.
It is encouraging, but it's like, I want a refresh. Like, I want someone like, a lot of people that have been doing the Gear VR lens mod for the Vive. Like, like it almost looks like the Go lenses are the same physical footprint of the Rift lenses, almost like a 1-for-1 match. Like I want someone to get out the razor knife and carve one up and tell us it'll work, and then I'll do it too. Like,
Yeah.
So what about like Lost or Alamet or like Dear Angelica, and are any of that, is there a place that you can go to on the internet actually that shows like the whole library of Go, I wonder?
I think you can go to Oculus's website and see stuff, but I don't know if you have to have had those devices associated with your account first or not. So like if I go to Oculus website, I can see Go stuff and I can see Rift stuff. I don't know if I can see Gear VR stuff when I'm logged in. If you go unlogged in, I think you can see everything. But I don't know, like if you haven't in any way associated a device, I don't know if you can buy content for your account for a device that you've never associated with. So I could be wrong. I'm just saying, sort of speaking anecdotally to my experience, but
Because I've always thought, like, I mean, one of the main things I've wondered with the Go is would we get to a point where there would be certain experiences where there would be virtually no difference? So like you could sit somebody down and say, hey, play this on or view this on the Go, and you're basically getting pretty much an identical experience in this $200 thing.
Yeah, I think you are when it comes to like Blaze Rush and Kin. Like they're like it's like wow. Yeah, when you lean forward, like that's it. But like you're not really like in Kin. You're not leaning forward, and you're not really interacting spatially with that world of Kin. So like if you just kind of sit still, like they are identical experiences. In fact, in some ways they can be better on the Go because you don't have the cable, you don't have the God rays, and you don't and you have a slightly higher resolution.
So with Henry, they just put they basically put your head in one spot, and then they render it with your head in one spot, and then they convert it to stereoscopic. And so as long, like I wonder if I don't remember how Lost worked. Like, did you have to move around in Lost? I wonder if there's a reason why they haven't done Lost in this same mode, or maybe it was rendered with a different.
I think maybe they just chose Henry because that was, I think, was the more popular one. It won some sort of like short film award. I remember.
Won an Emmy.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, an Emmy.
Yeah.
So I think they just chose that one first. I think it would be really neat. So there was a company, we talked about it, I don't know, it feels like 5-6 months ago. I don't remember when, but there was a company that was going to find out a way to, like, let's say Anthony was playing Echo Combat, and that we could go in and we could be spatially and spectate his game. Y'all remember that company that was doing that software?
Vaguely, yeah.
So like, I wonder if what Carmack has done here in Henry, like sort of a VR Let's Play. Like, I don't know if it's able to be captured in real time, but we could sit down just on our Oculus Go's and from whatever spectator spot could actually watch recorded gameplay or watch an actual live stream of people playing Echo Combat or something like that. Like that would be super interesting because the fidelity here was really high, and I think it would be nice. Like as an example, someone do an entire play out of like Fallout 4 VR that way. And if you're having problems in one area and you go and like, well, how do I solve this issue? And you can actually put on your Oculus Go and experience that, even though you're not actively playing the game itself and it's just video. That would be a real good way to experience content.
I will say there is a slight trade-off with this. Although the clarity, you've got a high level of clarity in Henry, there's a trade-off because, as we all know, stereoscopic video, if you tilt your head slightly or anything like that, it goes off kilter and it doesn't quite work in the same way as a rendered video, rendered experience, I should say, which is sort of the preferable way. So this is sort of a way that they can do it. And I don't think it necessarily applies too much for these CGI, these pre-rendered kind of experiences. What I want is this kind of fidelity in actual 360 video, because there's no way around that. You can't tilt your head and do this kind of stuff in a standard captured 360 video, but you can gain the clarity, and that's the thing that I think this proves. The clarity is the most important thing. You have to keep your head level, and you rotate it around in 360, perfect. If you try and tilt your head, or if even in a Rift, even if you try to move through that space, then you run into the problems. So I think they're working within the means that they've got, but it's interesting nonetheless.
We talked about some content, I don't know, a month or so ago that I said was surprisingly high fidelity. It's all 180 video. It's in a 5K resolution. Do you remember what I'm referring to? Did you ever check any of that content out?
No, what was that?
it was.
Okay, yeah. No, sorry. Yeah.
Sounds like a no.
Yeah.
so. No. Yeah, Henry was way and above clearer than that, but my comment still stands. Like, that stuff is some of the highest fidelity video of an actual person in stereoscopic 3D that I've ever seen. So I think it can be done, but they're choosing it from one vantage point. You know, it's the idea of like all the good video we've seen is like, okay, this is a camera. Sit in this one spot in the middle of this room or whatever, and that's the vantage point you get, and your head is on a swivel. It's almost like the thinking of like the Windows MR, the inside out tracking. There are some sports arenas, and I only track this because one of my teams in college basketball, Indiana, they have invested. Mark Cuban, he's an alumni, and he's invested in technology at the university. So in the basketball arena, they've got almost like a lighthouse. That's where I'm drawing this parable. They've got cameras all around the perimeter of the basketball arena. So they record video volumetrically. So they're not locked in. And then as we go into like commercial break, they'll show this 3D pan of like someone going for a dunk. A player will go up for a dunk. The video will pause, and then like the Matrix movie, it'll spin around the player, and then you see him finish the dunk. Well, they're able to do that from multiple vantage points stereoscopically. Like, and of course, on a flat screen, you're not getting it stereoscopic. But I think the technology's there. If you can capture all video from every angle simultaneously, and then you have the software that can pick out the coordinates. I'm probably getting a little too technical here, but it's doable if the software's there and you have the servers that can handle the massive amounts of recorded data, and you have a full camera array completely encompassing a space that you want to shoot video in. It's doable, I think, today. It's just it requires a hell of an investment and hell of software, and it's not practical.
Isn't that what Intel's entire CES conference was about?
Like, I don't know. I didn't see it.
January, like they made this huge giant facility with like cameras everywhere. Like, when are we ever going to see any of that stuff?
But this is what Magic Leap was showing as well. Just going back to Magic Leap very quickly, this is what they were showing. Where they shown it to Shaquille O'Neal, and they had this NBA game going on a table in front of him. That's how they captured that game. They had it from volumetric capture from all of these different angles, and then they rendered it on a table in front of him. And that's really sort of what their dream. And I think, I mean, how incredible would that be if they can actually do that to the mass market? I think there'll be a lot of interest in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think at some point down the line, like a movie set is going to be done that way. Like, season 8 of Westworld or whatever, it's going to be way down the line. We're only on season 2 now, but when they have the set and people are in the room, like, they're just going to be lined with cameras, and they'll be able to pluck out the depth video.
It's like a video pixel. Like, each pixel volumetrically will be like a video pixel. That's the whole thing that Intel voxels. They were talking about voxels.
Yeah. And I think so. I think the technology exists. I think we can do it. It's just very data intensive, very software intensive, and it's not practical for most things, especially when you have no effective community trying to consume content that way. But once there's a demand for this content to be delivered, I think the technology will be there to deliver it.
But once 5G combines with AI,
we're back on this. Yeah, no, I was having a discussion about 5G yesterday with somebody, and they're a little bit more skeptical than me. But anyway, so I guess, has anybody got anything they want to add to this week's episode?
Nope. Good.
Okay. Well, I guess that was episode 90 of VR Roundtable. Episode 90, imagine that. Okay, so here we are. We're at episode 90. We've got 10 to go to 100. What we're going to do for that, who knows? Probably nothing, but stay tuned anyway, because we might surprise you. But thanks for watching. And as always, I meant to mention this at the beginning of the show, actually. You need to leave a review for us on iTunes or any podcast area. And I know we always leave it to the end of the show, and not many people will listen to this part, so thanks if you are. But yeah, if you can do that for us, subscribe to our channel and leave a like and a comment, that would be great too. But other than that, I guess we'll see you next time for episode 91.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.